I trusted love and commitment with every part of my soul. When I met Jessica at my friend's wedding 3 years ago, I thought I had found my forever. We clicked, instantly shared dreams, and I proposed 6 months ago on her favorite beach. Everything seemed perfect until I discovered emails that would destroy my world. She was cheating with her high school ex-boyfriend, Troy. Even worse, she was pregnant with his child and planning to trap me financially after our marriage. Before I continue this painful story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel if you want to hear how I rebuilt my life after both my fiancé and family betrayed me in the worst possible way. I still remember the night I met Jessica. My college roommate was getting married, and I was a groomsman. Jessica was a bridesmaid, and we were paired to walk down the aisle together. The first time I saw her in that light blue dress, something just clicked. We spent the entire reception talking, laughing, and dancing. By the end of the night, I had her number and a promise for dinner the following weekend. Our relationship progressed naturally. I was the practical, hardworking software engineer who enjoyed quiet nights and saving for the future. Jessica was vibrant and social, always planning our next adventure or gathering with friends. We balanced each other perfectly. She brought spontaneity to my structured life, and I provided the stability she claimed she never had growing up. After 2.5 years together, I decided she was the one. I spent 3 months designing the perfect ring with a jeweler, saving up for something I knew she would love. I proposed at sunset on Cannon Beach, her favorite spot since childhood. It was a perfectly clear day, rare for the Oregon coast. When I got down on one knee, she cried and said yes immediately. That night, we celebrated and talked about our future together. We discussed having 2 children, buying a house in the suburbs, and building our careers side by side. The wedding planning started immediately. Jessica had been dreaming of her wedding day since she was a little girl, and she had very specific ideas about everything. We set a date for June, just a year after the proposal. We put deposits down on a beautiful vineyard venue, booked a photographer, and started designing invitations. I was happy to see her so excited, even if the costs were climbing higher than I had budgeted for. Looking back, I should have noticed the first red flags about 6 months before the wedding. Jessica became increasingly secretive with her phone. She would take calls in another room or quickly flip her phone over when I walked into the room. When I would ask who called, she would say it was just work or her mother. I dismissed these concerns as my own insecurity. Then came the changes in our social routine. Jessica started having more and more girls, nights that would run late. She would come home smelling like alcohol and cologne, but when I mentioned it, she accused me of not trusting her. She claimed the cologne smell was probably from hugging her married friends goodbye. I chose to believe her because the alternative was too painful to consider. As our wedding date approached, Jessica became more demanding about the ceremony and reception. She wanted to upgrade everything from the flowers to the menu. When I expressed concern about the mounting costs, she said, "You only get married once." I want it to be perfect. The budget we initially agreed on doubled, then nearly tripled. I dipped into my savings to make her happy. My lawyer suggested a prenuptial agreement, given my assets and rising position at my software company. When I brought this up to Jessica, she became extremely upset. She accused me of not trusting her and planning for our divorce before we even got married. After several tear-filled arguments, I reluctantly agreed to move forward without the prenup. I told myself love required trust, and contracts would only complicate our relationship. Then came the day that changed everything. Jessica had gone out with friends, and I was working from home. We shared a laptop for household management, bill payments, and wedding planning. When I opened the browser to pay our utilities, I noticed her email was still logged in. I never snooped through her things, but a name in the subject line caught my eye: Troy Patterson. Troy was her high school boyfriend, her first love. She had mentioned him a few times during our relationship, always with a tone of nostalgia that made me slightly uncomfortable, but she assured me it was ancient history. The email subject read, "Our future plans." My heart pounding. I clicked on the email. What I found was worse than anything I could have imagined. There were dozens of exchanges between them dating back nearly 8 months. They contained explicit messages, plans for meetups, when I was traveling for work, and intimate photos I can never unsee. They discussed their ongoing affair in detail, with Jessica complaining about me and assuring Troy that I was merely her ticket to financial security. With shaking hands, I kept reading. In recent emails, Jessica had shared news of her pregnancy. According to the doctor, she was 10 weeks along. The timing made it impossible to be mine, as I had been on a 2-week business trip to Japan during the likely conception period. Even more disturbing, she and Troy were celebrating the pregnancy, while planning to pass the child off as mine. But the true devastation came when I found a draft email titled Financial Security Plan. It detailed her strategy to marry me, establish herself as my wife for just over a year, then file for divorce, claiming irreconcilable differences. She planned to seek significant alimony based on becoming accustomed to a certain lifestyle, plus child support for a baby that was not mine. The document included consultations with a divorce attorney who specialized in high-asset separations. As I scrolled through more emails, I discovered this scheme had been in motion for almost a year. Troy was initially hesitant, but Jessica convinced him it was the perfect plan. She would get financial security from me, and they could be together with their child after the divorce, living comfortably on my money. They even joked about how oblivious I was to their deception. I felt physically ill. The woman I loved, the future I had planned, the family I imagined building together, it was all a calculated lie. I sat in our home office for hours, copying evidence to my personal accounts and trying to process what I had discovered. I waited for Jessica to return home that evening. I made myself a strong drink and sat in the living room with my laptop open, screenshots printed, and a hollow feeling in my chest. When she walked through the door around 11, she seemed surprised to see me still awake. "Bertram, why are you sitting in the dark? Is everything okay?" she asked, setting down her purse. I remained calm despite the storm raging inside me. "Jessica, I need you to be honest with me. Is there something you want to tell me about Troy?" Her face flashed with panic before quickly composing into a confused expression. "Troy, my ex from high school. What about him? Please don't lie to me anymore," I said quietly. "I saw the emails. All of them." She attempted to maintain her innocence for a few more minutes, claiming I must have misunderstood or that I was invading her privacy. When I showed her the printed screenshots of her own words, her strategy changed. "It was a mistake, Bertram. I was feeling neglected with all your work travel. It just happened, but it meant nothing. I love you. Only you," she pleaded. I pointed to the pregnancy confirmation email. "And this. Were you planning to tell me about the baby that isn't mine, or just let me raise another man's child without knowing?" Her tears flowed freely now, but I could see the calculation behind them. I was confused and scared. "I knew you would be a better father than Troy ever could be." "And what about this?" I showed her the financial security plan. "Were you confused when you planned to divorce me and take half of everything I've worked for?" Her demeanor changed instantly. The tears stopped, and a coldness entered her eyes that I had never seen before. "You were never supposed to find out. We could have been happy for a while at least." Happy based on what a complete lie. I stood up, trembling with anger and hurt. "Troy is your true love. Right. That's what you told him in these messages. So why involve me at all? Because Troy doesn't have a 6-figure salary and stock options," she snapped. "He doesn't have a promising career or a investment portfolio. He has love, but not security. I wanted both." Her honesty finally was like a slap. "You need to leave. Tonight. Now." Jessica switched tactics again, crying and begging. She threatened to hurt herself, claimed she could not live without me. When that did not work, she became angry, saying, "I would regret this, that no other woman would ever love me like she did." I remained firm. "Take what you need for tonight. You can arrange to get the rest of your things when I am at work tomorrow. The engagement is off. Please give me back the ring. "Keep your stupid ring," she spat, throwing it at me. "You will regret this, Bertram. Nobody walks away from me." She packed an overnight bag and left, slamming the door so hard a picture fell from the wall and shattered. It was a photo from our trip to Hawaii last year, the glass now cracked between our smiling faces. It seemed appropriate. The next day, I contacted the wedding vendors to cancel everything. Most deposits were non-refundable, costing me thousands, but it was still cheaper than a divorce would have been. I changed the locks on my apartment and arranged to work from home the next day while Jessica collected her belongings. I asked a friend to be present to ensure nothing went missing beyond her personal items. That was when I discovered Jessica had taken action much faster than I anticipated. My friend called while Jessica was collecting her things. "Man, your family knows about the breakup already. Your mom just called Jessica to check on her." My stomach dropped. I had not had a chance to tell my family what happened yet. Jessica had beaten me to it, and I could only imagine what version of events she had shared. I tried calling my parents immediately, but both their phones went straight to voicemail. My siblings likewise did not answer my calls or texts. Later that evening, I received a devastating series of messages from my younger sister, Amanda. According to her, Jessica had told my entire family that I had been cheating on her with multiple women throughout our relationship. When confronted, I allegedly became verbally and physically threatening. She claimed the pregnancy was actually mine, but I was abandoning her because I did not want the responsibility of being a father. Jessica had always been close with my family. She cultivated those relationships independent of me calling my mother regularly and sending thoughtful gifts to my siblings. They adored her and thought she was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now she was using those connections against me. Before I could formulate a plan to present my side of the story, with evidence, my apartment buzzer rang. Through the intercom, I heard my father's voice demanding to be let in. I buzzed him up, relieved to have a chance to explain everything face to face. That relief evaporated the moment I opened my door. My father, normally a composed and reasonable man, was red-faced with anger. Before I could even greet him, he shoved me backward into my apartment. "How could you?" he shouted. "We raised you better than this. Cheating on that wonderful woman, getting her pregnant, and then throwing her out, Dad, that's not what happened. If you would just listen." "No, you listen," he interrupted. "Jessica told us everything. How you've been lying to all of us. How you threatened her when she found messages from other women on your phone. How you told her to get rid of the baby or get out. None of that is true. She's the one who—" I never finished that sentence. My father, a man who had never laid a hand on me in anger my entire life, punched me squarely in the face. The force knocked me backward, and I stumbled over the coffee table, crashing to the floor. Blood poured from my nose as I looked up at him in shock. "You are no son of mine," he said, his voice ice cold. "Do not call us. Do not come to the house. You are not welcome in this family until you make things right with Jessica and take responsibility for your child." He left without giving me a chance to show him the evidence or tell my side. As the door slammed, I sat on the floor of my apartment, blood dripping onto my shirt, feeling completely alone. My mother called shortly after, crying so hard I could barely understand her. She said she was heartbroken by my behavior and that she had thought she raised a better man. Like my father, she refused to listen to my explanation. My siblings were no better. Amanda sent a scathing text message saying she was disgusted to call me her brother. My younger brother posted on social media about men who abandon their pregnant fiancées, not naming me directly, but making it clear to everyone who knew us who he was referring to. Within 24 hours, I was blocked by my entire family on all communication platforms. Several mutual friends reached out not to check on me but to express their disappointment. Jessica had worked quickly and effectively to isolate me from my support system. I was alone, dealing with the dual betrayal of my fiancé and my family. The depression that followed was the darkest period of my life. I questioned my judgment, wondering how I could have been so wrong about the woman I planned to marry. I replayed every interaction with Jessica, looking for signs I had missed. Work became my only escape. I took on extra projects, worked late into the night, and volunteered for every business trip available. Being in the empty apartment where we had built our relationship was too painful. I packed up all of Jessica's remaining things and had them delivered to her friend's address where she was staying. I could not bear to see her again. The weeks that followed were a blur of work, sleepless nights, and isolation. I consulted a lawyer about protecting myself from potential false claims Jessica might make. He advised me to document everything and maintain copies of all evidence. I started therapy, trying to process the betrayal trauma and rebuild my sense of trust in others and myself. 6 weeks after our breakup, I received a text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Jessica. It's Troy. Can we meet?" My first instinct was to ignore it. What could Jessica's lover possibly have to say that would matter to me? But curiosity won out. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown, a public place where I felt comfortable. Troy looked nothing like I had imagined. From Jessica's descriptions of her passionate first love, I had pictured someone charismatic and confident. Instead, I found a nervous-looking man with disheveled hair and tired eyes. He stood when I approached his table, extending his hand uncertainly. "Thanks for meeting me," he said after we had ordered coffee. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see." "What's this about?" I asked, getting straight to the point. "Jessica." He sighed. "She's not who either of us thought she was. After you kicked her out, she moved in with me. At first, it seemed like everything we had planned was falling into place, but then things started to change. According to Troy, Jessica began pushing for commitment, talking about marriage and how they would spend my child support and alimony payments. When he expressed hesitation about their future, reminding her that the baby was a big responsibility, she became manipulative and threatening. "Last week I found papers in her purse," Troy explained. "She was looking into putting me on the birth certificate as the father, then suing me for child support too. She had calculations of how much she could get from both of us. When I confronted her, she completely lost it." He showed me threatening text messages she had sent him after their fight, claiming she would ruin his life if he did not cooperate with her plans. It was eerily similar to how she had reacted to me. "I know I did a terrible thing being with her while she was engaged to you," Troy said. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I wanted you to know what kind of person she really is, and I want to help clear your name with your family." I was skeptical of his sudden attack of conscience, but he seemed genuinely remorseful and frightened by Jessica's behavior. More importantly, he had information and was willing to help undo some of the damage Jessica had caused. Over the next few weeks, Troy and I built a comprehensive case documenting Jessica's deception. He signed an affidavit about the timeline of their relationship, including dates that proved the baby could not be mine. He agreed to a paternity test once the baby was born, confident the results would confirm he was the father. Most damning of all, Troy revealed that Jessica had attempted similar schemes before. He connected me with a previous boyfriend of hers, who shared a disturbingly similar story of manipulation, fabricated pregnancy scares, and financial exploitation. This pattern of behavior stretched back to her early 20s. Armed with all this evidence, I created a detailed document chronicling Jessica's deception from beginning to end. I included screenshots of her emails with Troy, the financial security plan, the threatening messages she sent after being discovered the paternity timeline, and testimonials from others who had experienced her manipulation. I sent this document to my parents with a simple, factual cover letter, explaining that while I understood they loved and trusted Jessica, they had been manipulated just as I had been. I did not attack them for believing her, or mention the physical altercation with my father. I simply presented the truth and asked them to review it with an open mind. Troy took an extra step by calling my parents directly. He introduced himself and confirmed everything in my document, taking responsibility for his role in the affair and expressing regret for the pain it caused our family. The response was not immediate. For a week, I heard nothing from my family. Then my mother called. She was crying again, but for entirely different reasons. She had confronted Jessica with the evidence, and Jessica's reaction, flying into a rage and threatening to sue my family for defamation, had confirmed everything. "I am so sorry, Bertram," my mother sobbed. "We should have listened to you. We should have given you a chance to explain. Can you ever forgive us?" My father was slower to reach out. His text message was brief. "I was wrong. We need to talk." When we finally met at a restaurant near my apartment, he could barely look me in the eye. The bruise his punch had left had faded, but the memory remained vivid for both of us. "I have never in my life raised a hand to you before." That day, he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I will regret it until the day I die. I failed you as a father by not trusting you enough to hear your side." My siblings followed with their own apologies. Amanda cried when she saw me throwing her arms around me and begging for forgiveness. My brother took down all his social media posts and publicly posted an apology for jumping to conclusions. Jessica made one last desperate attempt to maintain her lies, creating a new email account to send my family evidence that Troy and I were working together to frame her. The poorly fabricated screenshots and inconsistent timeline only served to further confirm her deception. When her final attempt failed, Jessica disappeared from our lives. Troy later told me she moved to another state to live with a cousin. She blocked all of us, which was honestly a relief. The last I heard, she had given birth to a baby boy, and Troy was navigating the complex process of establishing paternity and determining custody arrangements. Rebuilding my relationship with my family did not happen overnight. While I appreciated their apologies, the pain of their instant willingness to believe the worst about me lingered. I did not want to cut them out of my life completely, but I needed to establish clear boundaries moving forward. We started with occasional family dinners, carefully avoiding the topics of Jessica or relationships in general. I made it clear that I needed time and space to heal, and that any future relationship would require mutual respect and trust. They accepted these terms, though I could see the sadness in my mother's eyes when I declined invitations to stay the weekend or attend extended family functions. For my own healing, I decided a fresh start would help. I applied for a position at my company's Seattle office and secured a promotion in the process. Moving to a new city gave me the physical and emotional distance I needed to process everything that had happened and begin rebuilding my life on my own terms. In Seattle, I focused on creating a new social circle with more discerning friendships. I joined a rock climbing gym, took cooking classes, and volunteered at a tech literacy program for underprivileged youth. These activities introduced me to people who knew nothing about my past drama and accepted me for who I was in the present. The experience with Jessica taught me valuable lessons about trusting my instincts regarding people's character. I became more observant of small inconsistencies in what people said versus what they did. I learned to watch for patterns of behavior rather than isolated incidents. This was not the same as becoming cynical. Rather, it was developing a healthy level of discernment. Perhaps the most surprising outcome of this ordeal was my evolving relationship with Troy. What began as a reluctant alliance to expose Jessica's lies gradually developed into something resembling friendship. We had both been manipulated by the same person, and that created an unusual bond. We met occasionally for a beer when he visited Seattle for work, sharing updates on our lives and the ongoing process of healing from Jessica's deception. Meanwhile, my family worked diligently to rebuild trust. My father, a man of few words, demonstrated his remorse through consistent actions rather than lengthy apologies. He respected my boundaries, checked in regularly, without being overbearing, and once drove all the way to Seattle just to help me assemble furniture in my new apartment. My mother sent care packages but did not pressure me about visits. My siblings made efforts to include me in their lives while respecting my need for space. About a year after moving to Seattle, I met Diane through the volunteer program. She was intelligent, compassionate, and refreshingly straightforward. Our relationship developed slowly, as I was cautious about opening my heart again. I was transparent about my past experience, and she was patient with my occasional trust issues. Her consistent honesty and respect for boundaries helped me learn to trust again. Jessica attempted to contact me once more about 18 months after our breakup. She sent an email claiming she had changed, that she missed me, and that we should try again. She conveniently omitted any mention of the baby or her schemes. I did not respond. Some doors are better left closed. As for my family, we eventually reached a new equilibrium. I forgave them, understanding that Jessica had been manipulating them for years before the final betrayal. We established healthier communication patterns and a greater appreciation for hearing all sides of a story before making judgments. The relationship was different than before, more measured, more careful, but also more authentic in many ways. The journey from betrayal to healing taught me lessons I carry with me daily. I learned that trust should be extended carefully and withdrawn when repeatedly violated. I discovered that blood relation does not guarantee loyalty, but it also does not prevent reconciliation when there is sincere remorse. I found that a person's true character reveals itself not in easy times, but in moments of crisis and conflict. Perhaps most importantly, I learned that self-respect must come before others' approval. By standing firm in the truth despite everyone believing Jessica's lies, I preserved my integrity and eventually vindicated myself. Had I capitulated to pressure or accepted blame to appease my family, I would have lost something far more valuable than their temporary approval: my self-respect and dignity. Today, my life looks nothing like the future I had imagined with Jessica, and I am profoundly grateful for that. The collapse of that fabricated dream made room for an authentic life built on genuine connections and hard-earned wisdom. Have you ever faced a situation where your family believed someone else's lies about you? How did you handle it? And were you able to rebuild those relationships? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming betrayal and finding strength in the most challenging circumstances. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads to gaining what you truly need.